Here we have the man who hunts monsters every single day of his life versus the man who has become a monster. Guts versus Kaneki. Alright, let's begin with Guts. For starters, this is a guy who was born from a corpse and has escaped the hand of death time and time again. How does he do it? I can't honestly tell you. This man is just completely a monster in of itself. If you really want to be honest, you could even consider Guts as a superhuman because everything he does honestly goes beyond the capabilities of a single human being, and when it comes to these feats, you're going to see why. After jumping off of a cliff with what little strength and endurance that Guts had, he ended up fighting off an army of 100 fucking men all by himself. I don't know how this is possible, but literally with just the only sword in his two hands, he was able to kill an entire army alone. If that isn't enough to convince you, with a ton of mercenary training under his belt, Guts has become extremely talented with the sword and can adapt to his opponent in a fight only to read their movements and block every attack near perfectly. Of course, this would all be thanks to his experience with a sword, leaving him to get out of a situation through just his sheer willpower. With literally only a broken sword hilt while being cascaded into hell, fighting thousands of demons all by himself, he was killing demons by the numbers, only to break off a demon's horn and use that very same horn as a weapon to kill him and all of his allies. And with this same broken hilt, he would climb a demonic fleshy hand that is as tall as a tower, right after being fatigued from fighting another demon before all of this. Guts' endurance and willpower are on a completely different level, and I cannot stress that enough. He would survive getting hit by a tree only to be lifted up into the treetops, falling onto their branches, only to hang there like a corpse. And after all of this, he was able to still get up and continue fighting. While even fighting Mazgus in his apostle form, Mazgus would use God's armor, and in doing so, his entire body would be made of stone. And he would hit Guts with 1,000 punches multiple times, only for Guts to tank this attack every time. Guts was hit with stone punches around 2,000 times, if not more. Guts would even survive getting shocked by lightning multiple times, and this same lightning would incinerate anything that it touches. Now, how does a regular human being survive getting shocked by lightning once, let alone twice? I couldn't tell you. This dude is durable as Guts' reflexes are also a huge factor to take into consideration, and you want to know why? Because he is so quick. He's fast enough to grab a fencing sword and catch it with the palm of his hands while it's striking at him. This really gets a lot more absurd than you could even imagine. When facing off against two horse riders, they both attempt to attack him with their spears in a pincer attack, but he closes his eyes and dodges both of them. This man Guts is actually dodging spears with his eyes closed. Not one, but two spears coming from separate directions with his eyes closed. Now, when it comes to his strength, boy, oh boy, is this another topic that's just gonna blow your mind. With every single sword slice, he can cut through stone pillars. That's how strong every single swing of his giant weapon is. It's literally like these pillars were never even there in the first place. He can also cut down a barn in seconds, and this isn't even to take away his mobility because this strength allows him to perform moves that are completely unthinkable. He can lift himself off of his own weapon and hold himself in the air as an option to dodge oncoming attacks. If it isn't crazy enough that his sword is bigger than him, and not only that, but taller than him, he's still able to lift himself up with it and support his own weight, only to roll forward with this same sword that is dangling him up in the air and killing everything in front of him with only a few slices. Here's where things get really interesting. When it comes to Guts' arsenal, he has bombs, kablooey. He has an arm cannon that shoots an even bigger bomb, bigger kablooey. On this same arm, he can shoot crossbows off of it like it's a rifle, gunning down anyone with a storm of arrows, and I doubt anyone is going to be taking an arrow to the knee anytime soon. Because for a guy with one eye, Guts is actually really accurate with every arrow that he shoots. And if Guts' arrows do not work, he can throw knives. He's very skilled in this department, so much so that he can easily launch a knife into an opponent's eye like it's nothing, leaving him to hit his mark even if it's a small one to begin with. And finally, we have the best weapon at Guts' disposal, the Dragon Slayer. This weapon is not even described as a sword. In fact, it is too big to be called a sword. It's massive, thick, heavy, and far too rough. Indeed, it was a heap of raw iron. This weapon is far too powerful and way too out of the ordinary for anyone to just use, which should give you an idea at just how powerful Guts is to be able to use this and swing it around casually. If that isn't enough to take in, this weapon specializes in being able to cut down ghosts, spirits, and anything that would exist in another dimension entirely. Last but not least, we have Guts' Berserker Armor. This thing is definitely the most powerful tool that he can use completely. It throws him into a state of rage, what makes him damn near unstoppable. He can fight with his bones being broken because the armor will reinforce these same bones, forcing any broken limbs back into their rightful place. Not only that, but he gains superhuman speed and strength that far surpasses any type of fucking power that he had before. He has enough destructive force to destroy corundum in one slice. Diamond would be the hardest material alive, leaving it to be 4 times as hard as corundum. Even with that being said, corundum would be right below diamond as being one of the hardest materials to break. Right below diamond, that is. With everything that I mentioned, I think it's safe to say that Guts is pretty powerful. If you made it this far into the video, please make sure to also like and subscribe so that we can continue to make more content like this. Alright, now one thing that completely stands out about Kaneki is that not a single blade can pierce his skin due to being a ghoul. The only known materials that would do damage to the body of a ghoul would be a kagune and a quinque, which are made from the same substance that a ghoul's abilities are made up from. With that being said, Kaneki's body is really damn durable and it would take a lot to hurt him. We've seen him perform feats such as grabbing a sword with his mouth, and these are the weapons that are specifically made to kill ghouls, so take that into consideration because a regular sword would actually break on contact. So in most cases, in order to damage a ghoul, you're going to need some kind of special bullets or a special weapon to take them down. But since Kaneki has so many forms, we're just going to jump right into the most powerful ones. Starting off, we have dragoneki, which is Kaneki as a red dragon. In this form, Kaneki would be a giant, overly sized monster that would scale the buildings of Tokyo in seconds. The size of this form is honestly in of its own league because it even scales to the size of a fucking skyscraper, with not only its immense size to be something so noteworthy that most opponents would be an ant in comparison to it. To make matters worse, this form can also give birth to an army that is at Kaneki's disposal. These bloodthirsty monsters can chomp off the head of a human being in one bite. Their durability is also something to take into consideration because even the bullets that are made specifically for killing ghouls, these monsters are completely resilient towards. And yes, an insanely durable, highly resistant army that spawns at the hundreds is gonna be insanely hard to deal with. Now, while we're still on the topic of durability, I think now's as good a time as any to mention how amazing Kaneki's regenerative powers are, while being reduced to being only a nugget, and with his only sustenance being a face to eat in his last moments after starving himself for months on end. Kaneki is able to fuel his entire body off of the bare minimum and make his body come back to life. Now imagine what his regeneration is like when he's not starving. He can also survive being completely crushed and eaten. When it comes to Kaneki speed, he would move at 52 kilometers an hour, which would translate to 32 miles per hour, which would also be a speed faster than the average speed of a car. So yes, Kaneki can move as fast as a car. Here's where Kaneki's power truly begins to show itself. In his final form, he can use every single Kagune type there is. Starting with the Ukaku, it is lightweight and also it has high speed attacks, which allows him to be effective at both close and long ranges, so he can attack anyone from a distance by raining shards of his Kagune at them. So with this form, Kaneki can attack anyone who is far away from him. And now with his next form, Kokaku, he would turn his arm into a giant blade with enough attack potency that it can completely cut through the same durability that I mentioned from Kaneki's own minions. And with his next ability, Renkaku, he would have insane striking power. However, it would come at the cost of these Kagune parts specifically being brittle, but he can also use them as a mobility option, and even attack with the same Renkaku up close. You could imagine it being like multiple great swords attacking you at once. By simply reaching his tentacles out for a fierce attack, Kaneki can completely rend through all of these durable ghouls who are tanking through bullets that were specifically designed to kill ghouls, but he can also rend through concrete as if it's not even there. Kaneki's final Kagune would be known as the Bikaku, with its strength being the strongest at mid-range, and it's great at both offense and defense, but it is not fast at all. And yes, Kaneki can use every single Kagune type and switch them all out on the fly, leaving him to have an answer in almost every single instance of combat that he's fighting in, which gives us an idea of how much of a complete fighter Kaneki really is. Now with all that being said and done, who will win in a fight between Guts and Kaneki? Guts can definitely hold his own against Kaneki even without the Berserker Armor. A ghoul's Kagune is also mentioned to be more like a muscle with steel wires woven into them. With that being said, Guts can casually cut through stone with little to no effort, so he can definitely damage Kaneki's Kagune. Now when it comes to Kaneki's actual body, I think it's really safe to think the same way. Guts would easily tear through Kaneki with the Dragon Slayer, especially if we take into consideration that this sword can even kill ghosts. Stone pillars, even a giant rock in the presence of Guts literally means nothing. Undoubtedly so, even with the use of the Berserker Armor, which is strong enough to destroy Corundum, it will definitely destroy Kaneki in one slice. So it's easy to say that Kaneki will have a very hard time defending against Guts. However, there's one thing that Kaneki can definitely use to his advantage in this fight. It's the fact that Kaneki can move at 32 miles per hour. I sincerely doubt that Guts will be able to even catch him when it comes to that speed. Guts would really have to strategize against Kaneki in this battle because even regular bullets would not be able to destroy Kaneki, and so Guts' utilities such as his knives, his bombs, his arrows, and quite possibly his arm cannon might not have any effect on Kaneki. Let's just say Guts some way somehow manages to completely ravage Kaneki with the Dragon Slayer while wearing the Berserker Armor. Kaneki would then become dragoneki, and then Guts would have to face off with a giant monster which is comparable to that of the Sea God. But unlike the Sea God, Kaneki will have minions that only the Dragon Slayer will possibly be able to destroy because it can go through Corundum. In order to beat Dragoneki, Guts would be forced to use the Berserker Armor in this situation. And even if he were to defeat Dragoneki, we also have Kaneki's final form that uses every single Kagune at once. Even after defeating Dragoneki, Guts would still have to deal with Kaneki's speed. And not only that, but Kaneki's regeneration is the main thing to look out for because he can literally only be reduced to a torso and a head and still survive. He can even come back from being completely eaten. The very thing that stands out about this fight is whether or not Guts will be able to completely tear Kaneki to shreds before he can even completely finish regenerating, or if Guts will finally be able to even reach Kaneki due to his speed. Guts definitely has the strength and the firepower to kill Kaneki, but Kaneki's endurance and regenerative ability alongside his speed and the addition of his durability making Guts' equipment outside of his Dragon Slayer completely useless, Kaneki has too much of an advantage over Guts in this fight, leaving Guts at the mercy of his own Berserker Armor and allowing Kaneki the leeway to allow Kaneki to eat Guts limb from limb and also regenerate after every single advantage advance Guts makes to destroy him. When it comes down to it, Kaneki's ghoul powers just allow him to completely win.